The Pope's top advisor to combat sexual abuse is urging Vatican offices to stop displaying artwork by disgraced mosaic artist Father Marko Rupnik. In a letter sent this week, Cardinal Sean O'Malley told Vatican offices continued use of Rupnik's work ignores the pain of victims and could imply a defense of the ex-Jesuit priest. This news comes the same day 5 women who say they were abused by Rupnik sent letters to Catholic bishops around the world asking them to remove his mosaics because their continued display in places of worship was inappropriate and re-traumatizing. This scandal was revived just last week when the head of the Vatican's Communications opened the floor to journalist questions and seemed taken aback when the topic of Father Rupnik arose. It once again reignited a global conversation about what the Catholic Church should do with sacred art when the artist faces serious sexual abuse allegations.
È evidente che parlare di un rito amazzonico vuol dire parlare di una cosa.
Paolo Ruffini, the head of the Vatican's Communications office, usually speaks to reporters in Rome, but last week addressed questions in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Catholic Media Association's annual conference. What started as a talk on journalism hosted by EWTN took a hard turn when the journalists in the room started asking why the Vatican Communications office still features artwork from the disgraced mosaic creator, Father Marko Rupnik.
The walls of the church are our self-portrait. This is the church.
Rupnik, who has been excommunicated once and already dismissed from the Jesuit order, has been accused by about 30 women of serial sexual and psychological abuse in his role as spiritual director for a community of women religious in his native Slovenia. In October, Pope Francis lifted the statute of limitations on Rupnik's case for it to receive a full review. The head of Vatican Communications told reporters last week he disagrees that Rupnik's art should be taken down, saying, quote, "I don't think we have to throw stones, thinking that this is the way of healing something. This is not the way to be close to the victims. Do you think that if I pull away a photo of art from my website, our website, I would be more close to victims? Do you think so? Really? Do you think so?" Ruffini also said, "We're not talking about abuse of minors." Reaction was immediate from multiple Catholic press outlets. And in an editorial, EWTN's sister publication, the National Catholic Register, called the comments shockingly tone-deaf and indefensible. This comes as Catholics grapple with what to do with Rupnik's art, which decorates more than 200 churches and shrines around the world, including at Lourdes, Fatima, and the Vatican. The Bishop of Lourdes says he is considering removing Rupnik's art from the Marian Shrine. To discuss this ongoing story, we are joined now by Father Thomas Petri, a moral theologian and president of the Dominican House of Studies in Washington, D.C. Father, thank you for being here for this important conversation. In the latest development, Cardinal Sean O'Malley is asking the Vatican to stop displaying Rupnik's art. I want to acknowledge that you have been outspoken on whether you believe Rupnik's art should be taken down. Can you first lay out your opinion on this matter?
Well, thanks be to God for Cardinal O'Malley, who shows great courage and bravery in standing up for those who are traumatized by sexual abuse. I mean, it's outrageous. Dr. Paolo Ruffini, his comments that we shouldn't judge and that the case is ongoing, not only remarkably tone deaf, but I think really oblivious and insensitive to the real issue at play here, which is that Marko Rupnik created his art in a very scandalous and sacrilegious way. This is not a typical situation of simply a sinner, since we're all sinners. It goes to how the art was even created. I would not even call it sacred art at this point.
As part of his Q&A with journalists last week, Ruffini, the head of Vatican Communications, also said, quote, "Removing, deleting, destroying art does not ever mean a good choice. This is not a Christian response." Father, you are a moral theologian. Can removing art be a Christian response?
Oh, absolutely. And in this case, I would not even consider this art. I think others have made the comment, and I don't know if Ruffini did or not, but that, Caravaggio was a murderer, and we are still displaying his art in churches around Rome and around Europe. It's apples and oranges. The difference here Yes, there are all sorts of sinners who do all sorts of things and can still do all sorts of good things and beautiful things for God. And it is true, and some have drawn the analogy with the sacraments, that sinful priests can still minister grace-filled sacraments. But in the case of Rupnik's art, what we know and what the accusations are is that he sexually abused consecrated women as the very process of creating the art, which means that it was profaned from the get-go. And on top of that, not only did he assault these women, it was actually an act of sacrilege. The church defines sacrilege as profaning or being irreverent towards a thing, a place, or a person who is consecrated and set apart for God. He engaged in sacrilege and assault in his so-called artistic process. That, in my view, stains the whole thing and is apples and oranges from the mere fact that any artist and every person is a sinner.
I want to flesh that out even just a little bit more because, yes, Ruffini did make that Caravaggio comparison, but Rupnik's, like you said, his alleged victims say his artistic creations are intrinsically linked to his manipulations. And that really makes this uniquely troubling. Right, Father?
Well, yeah, well, the analogy I would use, I mean, we can go back to Caravaggio. If Caravaggio or any artist were to, say, engage in some ritual murder as part of his creating the art, if he were to actually crucify somebody in order to paint the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, or to use the blood, I'm sorry to be graphic on this, to use somebody's blood, that would be a profanation. It would be sacrilegious. It's not sacred art from the get-go. In this case with Rupnik, I think it's a double sacrilege, not only what he did to these consecrated women, but in effect attempting to profane, not attempting, he did profane, if these accusations are true, and it seems that they are. He was excommunicated for this, or for certainly for giving someone for committing the sin against the sixth commandment, which he was excommunicated for. It's profaning the very art that he's attempting to make, and therefore I don't think it comes to the definition of sacred.
Let alone art, to your point earlier.
Yeah.
Rupnik's mosaics are displayed at some of the most iconic Catholic pilgrimage sites: Lourdes, Fatima, the Vatican. Father, can you speak to that? And can the faithful still have profound spiritual experiences there in spite of that?
I think that's the right word. And right now, in spite of that and not because of that, this is going to be a profound and difficult and complicated process. You're right. I mean, Rupnik's mosaics are everywhere, and usually they're broad and massive, usually encompassing whole walls or sometimes the entire interior of a church space. I don't expect that we'll see a lot of movement on removing those mosaics until the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith completes its investigation, its canonical investigation, which they are currently doing. I suspect once that's done and it is determined that, in fact, he is guilty of these crimes, and I suspect it will be determined. I have no reason not to believe these women. It's going to be more incumbent on those. It's going to be a tremendous expense, a tremendous problem. I think there are creative ways to do it, but I'll leave that sort of to the artists and the architects and to those in charge of this.
Well, and we'll leave the conversation right there. Father Thomas Petri, thank you for being here for this important topic.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Always good to be with you.
Thank you, Father.